How many moments have you missed because fear whispered, "Not yet"? How many times have you stood on the edge of something life-changing, only to step back and tell yourself a story of why you weren't ready? And how many more days will you let fear decide what kind of life you're allowed to live? Because here's the truth, no one dares to say out loud. Fear doesn't show up to protect you, it shows up to pause you, to plant doubt, to convince you that safety is more valuable than freedom. But what if you didn't listen this time? What if the voice in your head wasn't a voice at all, but an echo of every lie you've ever believed about yourself? Imagine waking up tomorrow and fear was just gone. No anxiety weighing down your chest, no second guessing your every move, no shrinking, no settling, no asking for permission, just clarity, just motion, just that version of you, the one you used to dream about, finally standing in front of the world, unchained, unapologetic and unafraid. What if your hesitation wasn't a flaw, but a signal, a sign that the door you keep avoiding is the very one meant for you to walk through? You think you need more time, more confidence, more proof, but what if the only thing you've ever needed was the decision to stop running? Because fear isn't going to step aside and let you pass. No, you'll have to walk right through it. But when you do, when you take that first step without waiting to feel ready, everything changes. So here's the question that matters most right now. If you didn't let fear make the rules anymore, who would you become? Because the truth is, fear isn't your future. You are. And today, it ends. They told you fear was the enemy, that it meant stop, that if your heart raced, if your palms sweated, if your voice trembled, it was a sign to turn back. But what if they were wrong? What if fear wasn't a wall but a window? What if it wasn't your warning but your wake-up call? Let me tell you a story about someone like you. His name was Daniel. Mid-30s, smart, talented, but stuck. Every time he got close to chasing something bigger, a business idea, a new relationship, standing up for himself at work, he'd freeze. Not because he lacked potential, but because he believed the lie we've all been fed, that fear is danger. That fear means this is not for you. That fear is the red light that says turn around. So Daniel stayed where it was safe, quiet, predictable, slowly dying inside. Until one night something shifted. He was walking home from his soul-numbing job, thinking about how much of his life he'd let pass while waiting to feel ready. And then it hit him. Not like a thought, but like a truth. He realized that every single thing he really wanted in life also scared him deeply. And in that moment, he asked the question that changes everything. What if fear isn't trying to stop me? What if it's trying to point me toward who I'm supposed to become? Because that's the truth most people never hear. Fear isn't a cage. It's a compass. It doesn't show up when you're weak. It shows up when you're about to grow. It's the sound your soul makes when you're touching the edges of your comfort zone. Fear is direction in disguise. It doesn't scream, retreat, and it whispers, this matters. Now here's the part that will either wake you up or haunt you. If you mistake your compass for a cage, you will spend your life avoiding the very paths that were meant to set you free. You'll call it wisdom, caution, logic, but it will be fear, wearing a suit and tie, talking you out of every dream you were born to live. And one day you'll look back and realize you weren't stuck. You were misreading the map. So the next time fear rises in your chest, don't run, don't rationalize, don't wait for it to go away. Instead, lean in, ask it what it's pointing to, and then walk toward it. Not blindly, not recklessly, but deliberately. Because the thing you fear the most, that's often the thing that will grow you the most. Daniel did. He quit the job, started the business, spoke on stage for the first time, voice shaking, heart pounding. And you know what happened? The fear didn't vanish, but it changed. It transformed from something that held him back to something that showed him the way. Let that be your shift. Fear isn't the signal to stop. It's the sign you're getting close, closer than you've ever been. And the closer you get, the louder it gets. So don't pull back, push through, because what's waiting on the other side is everything. It's easy to blame fear. It's easy to say, I'm scared, that's why I haven't moved. But what if I told you that fear isn't your real enemy? What if fear has been getting more credit than it deserves? And the real enemy, the silent killer of your potential, is something far more dangerous. It's inaction. It's the pause, the delay, that quiet moment when you could have moved but didn't. That invisible instant where you hesitated, overanalyzed, talked yourself out of it. Not because you weren't capable, but because inaction wore the mask of comfort. That's how it steals from you. Not loudly, but quietly. Camouflaged as waiting for the right time. Let me show you. There's a guy named Jason, mid-40s, married, 2 kids. Dreamed for years of starting his own business. He had the skills, the contacts, the passion. But every time he got close, he paused. Let me just wait until things settle. Let's just get through the holidays. Maybe next year when I have more clarity. Years passed, his job drained him, his soul faded. But he told himself, I'm being smart, I'm being cautious. No, he was being still, and stillness over time becomes a graveyard because fear is natural, but inaction is a decision, and every time you choose inaction, you reinforce the lie that staying still is safer than moving forward. But is it? Ask Jason now, and he'll tell you the real pain isn't trying and failing, it's knowing you never tried. It's living in the same loop, watching the same people take the chances you never had the courage to commit to. That's the heartbreak no one talks about, the weight of a life unlived. So ask yourself, what have you been calling fear that's really just avoidance? What are you postponing right now that deep down you know matters more than your excuses? Because here's the shift that changes everything. You don't defeat fear by thinking your way through it. You defeat it by moving in spite of it. One decision, one email, one conversation, one bold, imperfect step. That's how you break the cycle. That's how you reclaim the momentum. And the moment you act, even with fear in your throat, even with doubt screaming in your head, you win. Because fear fades with motion. But inaction grows stronger every time you let it win. So don't just fight fear. Fight stillness, because while fear whispers lies, inaction turns those lies into your reality. And if you let that continue, it won't just steal your today. It'll rewrite your entire future. You want a different life? Move. Even if it's small, even if it's shaky, just move. Because once you start, you become someone fear can't follow. There's something you need to understand, something that most people never realize until it's too late. Your mind isn't waiting to be inspired, it's waiting to be trained. Every thought, every hesitation, every reaction you have to fear has been rehearsed so many times, it's become instinct. Not truth, not destiny, just repetition. So let me ask you, how many times have you rehearsed your own limitation? How many times have you let fear speak, and instead of confronting it, you listened and then repeated it? That becomes your reflex, that becomes your life. But here's the good news, it can be rewired. You can reprogram the way you respond. Not with one breakthrough moment, but with deliberate daily decisions. Let me tell you about Lauren. She used to freeze every time she had to speak up at work, not because she didn't know what to say, but because somewhere along the way, fear became her pattern. Her nervous system had memorized the panic, so instead of speaking, she hesitated. Instead of leading, she watched. Until one day something shifted. She didn't wait to feel confident. She set a rule. Every day, one small moment of bravery. Raise a hand in a meeting. Ask one hard question. Share one opinion. It wasn't perfect. Her voice still shook. Her heart still pounded. But she did it again and again and again. And slowly, her fear faded. Why? Because repetition rewires reality. Her nervous system stopped associating action with danger and started associating it with strength. Do you see how powerful that is? Your body follows the patterns you give it. If you train it to shut down, it will. But if you train it to act, to speak, to move, to step forward, it will learn to do that too. This is biology, this is neuroscience, and this is your way out. So if fear still owns your reflex, ask yourself this. What if every day, instead of running from the discomfort, you walked into it on purpose? What if you made fear familiar, not because it stopped showing up, but because you stopped flinching? Here's your warning. If you don't train your mind, your habits will train you. And habits don't care about your dreams. They care about what you do most often. So starting now, what are you practicing? Cowardice or courage? Silence or voice? Shrinking or expansion? Because in the end, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your rituals. Build the ones that make you unstoppable. Train your response until it becomes who you are. There's a dangerous voice inside your head, and it sounds exactly like you. That's the trap. That's why it's so hard to catch. Fear doesn't show up screaming. It shows up disguised as reason, as logic, as caution. And the most dangerous part is familiar. It's comfortable. You've heard it so many times. You stopped questioning it. You started calling it truth. But let me ask you something. How much of what you believe about yourself did you decide? And how much did you just accept because it felt normal? There's a man named Alex, early 40s, father of two, working a job that drained the life out of him. Every morning he'd look in the mirror and feel it, that hollow ache, that quiet voice saying, this isn't it. But the moment he considered change, another voice would kick in. You're being reckless. You're too old to start over. What if you fail? That voice wasn't some external force. It was fear, rehearsed, polished, practiced over years, spoken so many times it had the rhythm of truth. But it wasn't truth, it was a script, a loop, a lie he had repeated so often it became his identity. Do you see the danger in that? Fear lies loudest through familiarity. The more often you think a thought, even if it's destructive, the more your brain accepts it as real. That's how fear wins, not through force, but through repetition. It doesn't have to be convincing, it just has to be consistent. And here's the emotional breaking point. How many of your dreams have you silenced because they didn't match the story fear wrote for you? What if your limits aren't real? They're just well rehearsed. There comes a moment when you have to interrupt the narrative. Tear the script in half. Ask, who taught me to shrink when I feel the most alive? Who told me playing small was safer? You weren't born thinking this way. You were conditioned into it. But conditioning can be reversed. Stories can be rewritten. And it starts the moment you stop accepting your fear as fact. You have to disrupt it out loud. When fear says you can't, you answer, watch me. When it says you're not ready, you respond, neither was anyone who made history. Your brain is listening, your body is listening, and what you say becomes law inside you. If you keep feeding fear, you'll keep living a life that fear approves of, a life that's safe, predictable, and painfully small. But if you flip the script, if you speak a new story until it becomes your truth, everything changes. So let this be the line in the sand, not one more day obeying a voice that never had your future in mind, not one more chapter written by fear. This time you write it, and when fear tries to narrate your life again, cut the mic. Everyone wants to feel courageous before they act. Everyone waits for the fear to subside before they leap. But courage doesn't come before the movement. It's born because of it. Let that sink in. You don't become brave by standing still and hoping. You become brave by stepping into the fire, even while your hands shake. There's a story I think about often. Jake, 29, smart guy, great ideas, always playing small. He had this business pitch he'd been rehearsing for over a year. Polished, perfect, but never presented. Why? He was waiting to feel ready, to not be nervous, but that moment never came. Because here's the raw truth. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the muscle you build by moving anyway. And Jake learnt that the hard way. One night, after backing out of another opportunity, he sat alone in his apartment and asked himself something that changed everything. What if this feeling isn't going away until I do the thing I've been avoiding? That question cracked something open. He sent the pitch the next morning, not because he stopped being scared, but because he realized fear was never going to make the first move. He had to, and once he did, everything changed. His confidence didn't come from success, it came from movement, from doing the thing before the fear faded. And every time he moved, the fear shrank. The lesson is simple, but life-altering. Exposure rewires fear. Every time you act in its presence, you teach your mind that fear doesn't mean stop, it means step forward. So what are you waiting for? Clarity, confidence, certainty? You'll be waiting your whole life. The path only appears after you walk. The fire only fades after you enter. Don't wait to be brave. Move and let the courage follow. Because the moment you move, the fear starts to die, and what's left is power. One day the clock runs out. You don't know when, but it will. And when it does, all that's left of your life will be the story you chose to write, or the one you were too afraid to. That's what this really comes down to. Legacy or comfort, growth or safety, expansion or familiarity. You can't have both. There's a man named Chris, 52, ordinary job, paid the bills, provided for his family, but every night he'd sit in his car for 10 minutes before walking into the house, not because he didn't love them, but because something inside him felt unfinished. He'd wanted to be a writer once, had notebooks full of stories, ideas, entire worlds, but life got loud. Responsibilities stacked up, and fear whispered, who do you think you are to want more? So he listened. He chose the safer road, the one paved with guarantees and quiet resignation. But the question haunted him, what if I was meant for more than this? That question didn't just echo, it ached. And maybe that's what you're feeling too, that subtle ache when you see someone doing what you secretly dream of. That quiet voice asking, is this all there is? Let me be clear, this isn't about fame or success or applause. It's about alignment, living a life that mirrors your fire, not your fear. And the most dangerous thing you can do is trade that life for comfort, because comfort never leaves a legacy. You will not be remembered for how safe you played it. No one builds monuments for the man who didn't try. You don't pass down a legacy of fear. You pass down what you fought for, what you overcame, what you refused to let go of. So here's the warning. If you keep waiting for the perfect time, you're not just postponing your dreams, you're quietly burying them. And the longer you wait, the heavier the regret. Don't let fear write your ending. Don't let silence be your final word. Your legacy is not some distant moment. It's being written right now with every choice you make. And at the end of your story, one question will remain. Did you choose purpose, or did you choose comfort and call it a life? Because only one of those gets remembered. Choose wisely. Discipline is not dramatic. It doesn't shout. It doesn't arrive with a fanfare. But it's the quiet architect of everything you want. And if fear is still running your life, it's not because you're weak. It's because you haven't trained your rituals to silence it. You haven't buried fear beneath something stronger yet. Let me introduce you to Megan, 36, corporate manager, talented, capable, and constantly overwhelmed. Every morning she'd wake up to a tight chest, a racing mind, 1,000 reasons not to do the things she knew she needed to do. Speak up, take the risk, start the project. So she did what most people do. She waited for motivation, but motivation is a ghost. It shows up when it wants, leaves without warning, and never sticks around when fear walks in. What finally changed for Megan wasn't some grand breakthrough, it was a decision. One morning she got up, made her bed, laced her sneakers, and ran in the rain. Not because she wanted to, but because she said she would. That's discipline, not perfection, not pressure, but practice. Repetition, ritual. She started stacking small wins, cold showers, silence before screens, journaling her fears and naming the lies. She didn't try to feel brave. She acted in spite of the fear. Over time, her body began to follow her decisions, not her doubts. Her voice steadied, her mind cleared. Fear didn't disappear, but it stopped being in control. Why? Because every small action she repeated told her nervous system, this is who we are now. And when identity shifts, fear has no place to live. So let me ask you, what are your rituals saying about you? What identity are you rehearsing every morning before the world even sees you? Here's the truth you need to hear. Fear cannot survive inside a disciplined person because discipline doesn't negotiate. Discipline doesn't stall. It doesn't wait to feel ready. It just moves. One decision, one action, one promise kept to yourself. That's the difference between those who conquer fear and those who live with it. And here's the warning. If you don't set your rituals, fear will. It will fill the silence with anxiety. It will hijack your mornings and bury your momentum before the sun even rises. So build the habits that bury fear. Stack the practices that create peace. Because in the end, courage isn't born in the big moments. It's built in the quiet ones. Every day, before anyone is watching, before you believe you're ready. That's where freedom starts. That's where fear ends. There comes a moment where pushing through fear is no longer enough. You don't just want to survive it. You want to outgrow it. You want to become the version of yourself that fear can't even recognize, let alone control. But here's the truth. You'll never escape fear by trying to think your way around it. You kill fear by becoming someone it no longer fits. I think of James, 28, used to flinch every time someone questioned him, avoided conflict, played small, not because he lacked talent, but because deep down he still saw himself as the kid who never spoke up in school. His identity was outdated, inherited, unchallenged. Until one night, fed up with the loop of doubt, he asked himself a question that changed everything. What would I do tomorrow if I were already the person I dream of becoming? And he decided to act from that place, not someday, not when he felt ready, but now. Because identity is not who you are, it's who you practice being. Every thought you choose, every decision you repeat, is casting a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. And fear feeds on the old you, the hesitant you, the one who still believes their worth must be proven. But when you start moving like you belong, speaking like your voice matters, choosing like your future is already unfolding, fear loses its grip. So the question is not how to fight fear, it's who are you becoming? Because when you shift your identity, fear has nowhere to land. Change your posture, change your language, change the rules of who you're allowed to be. And the moment you do that, you become the one fear can't touch. You've heard the voice of fear long enough, the whispers that said, not yet, not good enough. What if you fail? You've given it space in your mind, permission in your choices, and power in your identity. But now you know the truth. Fear is not your ruler, it's your signal. It's not the wall, it's the doorway. And the moment you stop obeying it, everything begins to change. You've learned that fear isn't waiting to disappear. It's waiting for you to decide it no longer runs the show. You don't need more time. You don't need more clarity. You don't need permission. What you need is movement, action, discipline. Because fear doesn't die when you feel ready. Fear dies when you move anyway. This is your moment, not tomorrow, not when things settle. Now you already have what it takes. You already carry the fire. You just need to act like it. Choose one thing today that you've been avoiding. Avoiding. One call, one conversation, one leap. Don't overthink it. Don't negotiate. Move, because your future is not waiting on your fear to fade. It's waiting on your feet to step forward. And if this hits something inside you, if you feel that deep pull in your chest, it's not by accident. That feeling is truth, and truth demands action. So drop the word untouchable in the comments if you're done letting fear call the shots. Subscribe right now if you're ready to write the next chapter on your terms. And if you're still wondering how this story ends, let me tell you, it ends when you decide. It ends when fear speaks and you don't flinch. It ends when you walk forward while your voice shakes and your knees tremble, because that's what courage is. And the world doesn't need another perfect person. It needs someone who moves through fear and becomes the proof that freedom lives on the other side. Say it with me, loud enough that fear hears it. Fear doesn't die when you feel brave. It dies when you stop listening. Now go, move, and don't look back.